I told a secret to Johnny Depp, and by morning the headlines told the rest. But headlines don't hold the whole truth. They never carry the feeling of a night that is too long, the sound of a voice you don't expect to hear, or the weight of a promise that keeps you awake until your heart aches. Only I can tell you that. Only I can tell you why I chose to speak, why I broke a rule, and how a single secret changed everything. I'm a nurse. Night shift. I live by beeps, by lists, by never letting the people I care for feel like they are alone. We are trained to hold secrets close. We fold them in our hands, we hide them in our pockets, we keep them because sometimes keeping them is the kindest thing we can do. There was a woman on my floor named Evelyn. Everyone called her Ev. She had a laugh that sounded like the start of a song and a way of asking questions that made you feel seen. She was old enough to have outlived a lot. Work, love. A brother who didn't make it past his 30s. She talked about him often, the way people do when grief becomes part of their language. I took her water, adjusted her meds, and listened. I always listen. But one night when the hall felt too quiet and the air felt too heavy, she asked for something I didn't know how to give. "Will you keep a box for me?" she whispered. "Just until morning. I don't trust my own hands to remember." I took it because that's what I do. I took the weight without asking where it would lead. It was small, light. Inside was an envelope, soft from years of being handled. On the front, in careful writing, were 2 letters and a last name. JD. Then a full name. You already know the name. It's the one in the headline. I looked at it and felt heat rise in my chest. The feeling was fear and curiosity tangled together. I told her I couldn't be part of anything wrong. I told her I couldn't contact anyone famous for her. "We have rules. We have lines we don't cross." "It's not wrong," she said. "It's a thank you, and it's a secret I've kept too long." She wanted me to deliver it. Not as a fan, not for attention. She wanted me to carry a few pages of paper to a man she believed had changed the shape of her life without needing anyone to know. She told me she met him by accident, decades ago, at a charity thing for an old friend. She was a seamstress then, making money where she could. She said he was kind, not in the way that gets written down, but in the way it sounds when someone asks your name and actually waits for the answer. She said he gave her a letter, not to her, to give to her brother. Inside, a promise for the cost of surgery and a note that said, "Please don't write about this. Please don't put my name on it." He didn't want to be thanked publicly. He wanted something more quiet. He wanted her brother to get his life back and them to keep their own dignity. Her brother lived almost 5 more years after that, long enough to see his daughter born, long enough to go fishing one more time with their father, long enough for Ev to say goodbye without the sting of regret chewing her up. She never told anyone the source of that help, because he asked her not to, and because someone saving you does not owe you the story of how. She kept the envelope all these years. She wrote a letter of her own. She said she had tried to send it through agents, through addresses she wasn't sure were real. Maybe it never got there. Maybe it did and no one read it. Most letters don't find their people. Most secrets die with the keepers. "Please," she said, "if I don't make it, give this to him. Tell him my brother's girl just graduated. Tell him she's studying to be a teacher. Tell him a quiet thing he did planted a forest nobody saw." I told her that celebrities don't meet people like me. I told her that even if I wanted to, I wouldn't know how. I told her I'd try anyway, because that is also what I do. I try. I went home after that shift and sat at my kitchen table and wrote the most humble letter I could. I wrote it in simple words. No pleading, no drama, just the truth that I was a night nurse, that a woman who never asked for anything was asking me to keep a promise, that there was a letter written from one human heart to another, with no ask beyond thank you. I found an address online for his agent. I put the envelope inside another envelope, with my note on top. I didn't use any strings I don't have. I used a stamp. I put it in a mailbox on my walk to the bus. I almost took it out 3 times. Days passed. Ave got worse, then better. In that strange way bodies fight. I told no one on the floor because nurses are good at carrying heavy things without leaving marks. But I started checking my email more than usual. I looked at my phone more than I should. I started noticing that when I closed my eyes I saw a pair of letters in black ink and the curve of a last name that made the whole world lean forward in my mind. I don't follow famous people. I stopped a long time ago. When I was young, my sister and I watched movies together every Saturday. We laughed. We cried. We knew the lines by heart. She loved a certain actor more than all the rest. His voice felt like a friend. After she got sick, those films were what she asked for on the days the nausea was too much and the jokes were too thin. We got used to walking around grief in that careful way you learn to do when you know the road will keep taking you through the same painful town. After she died, I couldn't watch his films anymore. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't anyone's. It just hurt. I went into work the next Friday and tried to hide how tired I was. Eve was restless. She wanted to know if I had done it. I told her I mailed it. I told her I didn't know what would happen. I told her the truth, which is what I always try to do. That night I heard a whisper run through the staff like a breeze in a room with no open window. Someone important was visiting. Someone was reading to the kids on the pediatric side. They said a name in awe, then stopped saying it, like saying it out loud might make him vanish. I told myself it couldn't be. In my head I made a list of all the JDs in the world who were not him. That list got shorter when I heard a voice from down the hall. You know that feeling when you hear a sound you know and your whole body remembers something you didn't know you missed? That's what it was like. I knew it before he said a second sentence. I knew it the way you know your name. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't loud. It was easy, like he was trying not to take up space. He thanked a tech by name. He made a joke with a kid. I didn't see him yet. I didn't need to. Knowing it was him made the little box in my locker feel like it weighed a ton. The shift supervisor asked for volunteers to help with a quiet visitor. She didn't say the name. She didn't have to. I don't volunteer for anything when I'm that far into a shift. I volunteered. There is a line you are not supposed to cross as a nurse. You don't ask for photos. You don't ask for autographs. You don't ask for favors. And you don't use your time with someone famous to solve your personal life. But Eve's letter wasn't a favor. It wasn't for me. It was for a woman who kept a promise for years longer than most people would manage. It was for gratitude that hadn't had a mouth until now. He thanked us. He was kind to everyone. He didn't act famous. He acted like a person who didn't want to be a problem. I waited until there was a breath of quiet, like the pause between two steps. I said his name and my voice did something strange. It came out small and steady at the same time. I'm a nurse on the other side. I told him. I have a patient with a letter she's tried to send you for a long time. She asked me to keep a promise. If I can give it to anyone at all, I'd be grateful. He looked at me and I felt something shift inside me that I can't put into neat words. It wasn't celebrity shining in my face. It was a person hearing another person ask for help. He asked my patient's name. I told him. He asked if she was awake. Sometimes she was. That night I said she was tired. He said he would like to meet her if it wouldn't cause trouble. He said those words, if it wouldn't cause trouble. I thought about the rules. I thought about Eve's eyes when she asked me to carry her secret. I thought about all the times I had told families to do the thing they would regret not doing, even if it scared them. I thought about my sister and the way we used to talk about courage like it was something you could borrow. It won't cause trouble. I said, and for once the thing I was most afraid of was true in the best way. He didn't come as an event. He came as a person. He spoke to Eve like she was the only person in the world. The way you do when someone is almost done with their time. He took the envelope from my hands when I offered it and he didn't open it right then. He held it like it had weight. Eve told him her brother's name. She told him about the day she got the call that said yes, they could do the surgery. She tried to apologize for telling anyone. He told her there was nothing to be sorry for in gratitude. He didn't want a story written about him. He wanted her to know he remembered. And he did. He remembered the friend who asked him to show up for that fundraiser. He remembered the girl who kept her head down but smiled with her whole heart when someone said the word family. He remembered writing that note. It had been a long time. But some things stick. He asked if there was anything he could do. She laughed, but softly, because laughter hurt. She told him there was nothing left to do for her. She told him that if he wanted to do something he could do it for the ones who would stay after she went. The nurses. The techs. The cleaners. The ones who made life softer for people who were in pain. Then she said something that she didn't tell me she was going to say. Tell the story, she whispered, looking at me. Tell it so people remember that kindness doesn't need a curtain call. Tell it so someone else will keep a letter safe until it finds home. He left without making anything feel like a show. He said goodbye the way you say goodbye to family you'll never see again. He put the envelope in his jacket. He thanked me. He said my name. There was a weight on my chest. I didn't know I had until it lifted. When I got home, the sun was starting to think about rising. My body wanted to fall into sleep, but my mind wouldn't let me. I kept asking myself if I had done something I couldn't take back. I kept hearing her voice saying, "Tell the story." I kept hearing his voice asking if it would cause trouble. I slept badly. I dreamed of paper and rain and voices I could not see. I woke up to my phone humming like a bee inside a jar. The headlines had found us. They didn't know Abe's last name. It said Central. They didn't know Abe's last name. They didn't say which room. They didn't say which nurse. They said things like this: Johnny Depp quietly visits hospital, honors woman's thank you that took decades to arrive. Anonymous gift becomes public gratitude. Actor responds to old letter, starts fund in nurse's name. An act of quiet kindness grows, star supports care teams after night visit. I stared at the screen and felt a mix of fear and awe that almost made me drop the phone. My heart pounded. I didn't know who had told. I didn't know what had been shared. I didn't know if I had broken something that couldn't be fixed. Then a message came to my work email from the hospital foundation. Not a news article, not a gossip blog. It was real, and it was boring, and it made my hands shake. It said a new fund had been created overnight in Abe's name for staff support. It said it would cover little things that are not little at all, like a month of child care when you have to pick up extra shifts, like a car repair that would otherwise mean you can't get to work, like a bill you keep pushing aside because you keep telling yourself you don't need help when you do. It said the first donation had come from an artist who wanted to remain unnamed, and some from people who had seen the morning news and wanted to help anyone who had ever held their mother's hand when they couldn't be there. The fund had a note attached from a donor who wrote, "For the seamstress who stitched a life back together and the nurses who hold the thread now." I cried for the first time in months, maybe years. I cried at my kitchen table until the tea went cold. I went into my next shift feeling like a person who had walked too far and found a soft place to sit for the first time. Ave was asleep. She slept most of the day. When she woke up, I told her that headlines had arrived. I asked her if she was okay with it all. I asked her if she wanted me to take any of it back. It's a foolish question, I know, because you can't take headlines back. But I asked it anyway because I needed her to know I was ready to stand there and be brave for her if it came to that. She squeezed my hand. "Let it be," she whispered. I squeezed my hand. "Let it be," she whispered. Maybe this is how that kindness grows. Maybe it needed some light. Maybe people needed a story that wasn't ugly. I didn't tell anyone the part that is hardest to say. Not yet. I didn't tell them that after he left her room, he stood with me in the quiet space near the machines and asked me how I was. Really? No one asks nurses that in a way that is ready for the truth. People think we are made of something hard. We aren't. We just hold our edges tight so that others can rest. "I'm fine," I said, the way good nurses lie. Then I said, "No, I'm not." I told him my own secret. The one I hadn't told anyone because it felt selfish and small. I told him that I used to spend my Saturdays with my sister watching the same movies over and over. I told him how we used to laugh too hard at the parts everyone knows by heart. I told him that after she died, I stopped watching anything from that part of my life, because the grief in it made it impossible to breathe. I told him that I felt strange being the one to carry this letter because a part of me had closed the door on the person who used to be a fan. I told him that I was afraid my heart would betray me and break open in a way I couldn't control. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't tell me that time heals all things, which it doesn't. He didn't tell me that love conquers all, which is a lie we tell when we don't know what else to say. He told me that grief is like the sea, and sometimes it pulls you under and sometimes it lifts you up and sometimes it is quiet, and none of that is wrong. He told me he was sorry for my loss. He said it like he meant it. He said, "Thank you for doing what I do." He said the world is kinder because of people like me. I don't know if that is true, but it felt like a blanket on a cold night. Ave died the next week, when the day was gray in the way that makes people want soup and soft socks and quiet music. She was not alone. The last thing she did was tell me to tell the story. She told me to make sure the secret found its way into the world in a way that didn't embarrass anyone, that didn't turn kindness into a parade. She told me there was one more thing in her box, under the letter. I found it later. It was a small note with my name on it. Inside in her writing was a simple line, "You are braver than the lies you tell yourself." There was also a key, wrapped in tissue, and a post-it with a number. I called the number on my break. It went to a lawyer's office. I thought I was in trouble. I was not. Ave had left a small inheritance to be used for continuing education for nurses who wanted to grow and couldn't afford to. It was not much, she wrote. It was not enough to change the world, but it was enough to change somebody's next month. She had spent a life saving little bits of money nobody would miss and used it to plant a seed. She asked me to be part of choosing where it went. She wanted me to help decide who needed it most. She trusted me. Me with my fear and my shaky hands and my habit of pretending I'm fine until I break. The headlines kept coming, but they got less wild. The story settled into something quiet. It was not a splash anymore. It was a ripple that kept moving out. Notes came into the foundation with names we'd never heard before attached to $20 bills, with messages like for the nurse who stayed past her shift so my dad wouldn't wake up alone, and for the tech who brought my mom a glass of water and made her laugh. These were the real headlines. Names of people most readers would never learn. Moments so small they almost didn't exist. Kindness stacked on kindness until the weight of it became not a burden but a bridge. A week later I got a letter in the mail that smelled like nothing, which is to say it smelled like paper and rain and the inside of old books. It had my name on it, and the return address said a city far away. Inside was a short note. It said only this: "Thank you for carrying her letter. Thank you for telling me about her brother. Thank you for keeping your promise. Warmly, J." It was signed with a name you know, but more important to me was the line he added under his signature. P.S. You can watch the movies again when you're ready. It's okay if you never do. Your love for your sister does not depend on what you can sit through. It's already yours. I cried again, in the quiet way you cry when the world has handed you a kindness you didn't ask for and didn't expect. Sometimes when stories like this make headlines, people ask if they are true. They think there must be some trick, a camera somewhere, a social media team, a plan to shape an image, to sell a person, to sell a brand. I'm a night nurse. I know the difference between a show and a human voice saying please and thank you and I'm so sorry. What happened was not a show. It was a secret handed from one person to another, and then to the morning. It grew because it had good soil. Here's the part I haven't told you yet. It might be my favorite part. The first call that came to the foundation after the headlines was not from a millionaire. It was not from an agency. It was from a kindergarten teacher in a town an hour away. She had seen the story. She had recognized the name of Ev's brother. She was his daughter, the little girl Ev had talked about, the one who had been born just after her uncle's surgery. She had grown up to teach small hands how to hold pencils and tie shoes and be kind. She sent a small donation and a note that said, "For Aunt Ev who taught me how to fix things with a needle and thread and love. For the nurses who keep everybody else stitched together." I printed that note and put it in my pocket. On the hard nights I take it out and read it. It reminds me that none of us are really alone, even when we feel like we are walking down a hall in the dark. It reminds me that secrets can be used to harm, yes, but also to protect and to heal. It reminds me that telling the right secret at the right time, to the right person, can open a door that leads to a room full of light. Work didn't get easier, and yet in a way it did. Not because a famous person had come to my floor and not because the headlines made our hospital look good for a minute. It got easier because I remembered why I do this in the first place. I do it for people like Ev. I do it for the brother she kept alive with love long after his heart gave out. I do it for the girl who grew up to teach letters and kindness. I do it for the woman I was when I believed I had to carry everything alone. Sometimes late at night, when the machines hum and the halls fall quiet and my coworkers are making each other laugh so that we don't cry, I think about the envelope that crossed a distance from one life to another and landed in hands that understood what it meant. I think about a man on the other end who didn't make it about himself. I think about a woman who did not let the world tell her when her gratitude had expired. And sometimes I think about you, listening to this, wondering if there is a letter you've been keeping in your own heart. Maybe it's time to send it. Maybe it's time to tell someone the thing you've been holding on to. Maybe it's time to write the thank you and let it go. You don't need a headline. You just need a little courage and a stamp. I told a secret to Johnny Depp. The morning headlines told the rest. But the parts that matter most won't ever make the news. They live in the space between a nurse and her patient at the end of a long night. They live in a handwritten note on soft paper. They live in the way a quiet gift can grow into a forest of kindness none of us ever planned. If this story moved you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little light today. Your support helps more stories find their way to the people who need them.